All right, so I'd like to start off by just presenting a question to you guys. Have you guys ever woken up or had it in an entirely different world from which you went to bed? Like everything you know, everything you hold on to, everything you are familiar with has been completely thrown out the window. Your life has been completely turned on its head. And I know some people might say yes, but I don't think it's the same as what I'm trying to talk about here, because I know it hasn't happened to me. I mean, even you can look at Bastille Day, you can look at the Declaration of Independence. Even on those days, some of the most momentously revolutionary days in history, if you're someone in Paris, someone in Philadelphia, you still recognize the world around you. Things have changed, but you're still going to bed and waking up in the same world. Now, there's a few very, very particular and very specific times when that's not true, when everything is completely different. And those are what I'm most interested in, because that, I find, is when things like will, endurance, and the ability for survival, and we're testing the limits of the human psyche. That's when you can find that like you can't find anywhere else, when everything has been totally thrown out the window. And this is one of those stories. So to start it out, it's a normal morning. There's a 16-year-old high school kid, his name's Seta, and he's helping out his brother with some errands around the house. His younger brother, Vutti, he's in elementary school. His mom's helping him get dressed for school in his school uniform. Some neighbors had stopped by to say good morning. It was a normal day. So when Seta heard a knock on the door, he heard 3 knocks on the door, and his brother told him to go open it. He wasn't expecting much. Maybe another neighbor, maybe some friends. Not expecting much. What he saw wasn't a neighbor, wasn't a family member. He saw a barrel of an AK-47 in his face. There were 3 soldiers clad in black, armed with AK-47s and RPGs. Within maybe 3 or 4 minutes, his entire family, all 14 of them, had been stormed out, pushed onto the street by these soldiers. And what they saw on the street was nothing like, I mean, this is their city. They grew up there. This is nothing like they'd ever seen. Chaos. Soldiers clad in black everywhere. There's gunshots ringing out. People are being robbed blind. People are being beaten. People are being executed. People are being dragged away. The soldiers are telling you to go this way, go that way. Nobody seems to know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. You have, I mean, it didn't take long, maybe a couple hours, and suddenly there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the streets. You have these massive mobs of people, and nobody knows what's going on. You have people yelling, they're going to bomb the city, they're going to bomb the city, they're going to bomb the city, and slowly these masses of people start to get on these highways out of the city. By the time Seth and his family went to bed that night, they were sleeping on the side of a highway with nothing but the clothes on their backs and enough food for a picnic. That day was the 17th of April, 1975, the day that the Khmer Rouge stormed Phnom Penh, and the world that the Khmer Rouge ushered in has become known since as one of the worst ever in human history, the Cambodian genocide. Now, to give you a little background on who the Khmer Rouge are, they were a bit of a hodgepodge of radical Maoist communism, Khmer nationalism, and a strong dose of total insanity. The reason why nobody knows what was going to happen is because they were mysterious. Their leader, who we now know as Pol Pot, nobody knew who he was before then. Nobody knew what they were going to bring when they came in. Even the highest echelons of government, they had no idea. I mean, the prime minister and all the senior generals were executed that day because they thought they were going to be able to negotiate. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And what followed, like I said, one of the worst events of human history. I mean, 1/4 of the population was killed over the 3 years, 8 months, and 9 days that the Khmer Rouge were in power. 2 million people. And among Seta's family themselves, they were some of the hardest hit. The Khmer Rouge believed that anything foreign needed to be eliminated in order to create the best, most perfect, purely Cambodian country. And that meant foreign nationals. That meant people who learned a foreign language. That meant educators. That meant doctors. That meant dentists. That meant people that wore glasses. Seta's family they were teachers. His father had been in the military of the former government that just got overthrown. And before that, he had been a monk. Now, if you're looking at who the Khmer Rouge were targeting, this was suicide to be part of this family. And of Seta's 14 members of his family, 10 of them were either killed, died of starvation, or died of disease by the time it was over. Seta, his younger brother Vutti, and his 2 parents, the only ones that lived. And what's so interesting is because, I mean, I don't have time to go into the details of exactly what Seta and Vutti went through. But I can tell you right now, it is absolutely horrific. I mean, what they had to deal with, I mean, they themselves were educated high school students. They had to change the way they talked. They had to change their names. And they had to completely obey every order they were given and hide who they were. They had to be quiet as they watched their friends get dragged off into the night and hear gunshots going off. They were caught malaria. They were not able to, they were denied medicine. They were worked 18 hours a day and fed nothing more than a bowl of rice. It was hell on earth. But what I find so interesting about it is because why is it that they were able to make it through when so many others weren't? What is it about them? What is it that they were able to go through that torture? They were able to starve themselves. They were able to go through all that, and they still held fast. They didn't tell them who they were. They made it out to the other side. And I interviewed these guys for months, and I interviewed them over and over again. I've heard a lot of other stories from other survivors, but theirs stands out to me because there's very few people who I've been able to meet who have had that kind of perseverance and that kind of commitment, where to the point where it was life or death, whether or not you tell them who you are, or whether or not you work, or whether or not you eat, everything had to do with whether or not you had consistency in your own values. And that was something that let them survive through that. But not only did it help them survive, or the only thing that let them survive, but it allowed them to go on and be great now. I mean, when I met Seta, the reason why I'm talking so much about Seta is because Seta went through all of that. He was 16 years old when the Khmer Rouge came on, knocked on his door. He was 19 years old when he fled the country when they fell from power. He lived for 12 years in a refugee camp. He was shelled by the Vietnamese. He was kicked out of Thailand. He was denied asylum by the United Nations. And yet, from a refugee camp in Thailand, he earned a master's degree, 2 master's degrees and a PhD. And with that education, he went back to Cambodia and helped the UN institute the first free elections Cambodia's ever had. And he's since been able to found an NGO that now helps 50,000 people, builds roads, schools, wells, and develops a kind of infrastructure that helps people get past what is still hurting the country from the Khmer Rouge. And I think that, I hope, and I'm almost certain nobody in this room is going to have to go through that kind of experience, but there's something to be learned from that kind of incredible commitment and perseverance to your own values, to the point where it's not, for Seta and for Buti themselves, it not only helped them survive, but it's what made them thrive afterwards. And that's something that can be learned and something which I consider most important. Thank you.